Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Hooks and Ladders. My name is Blair Packham.
My name is Allister Bradley.
And we have a special guest with us today. We have the rocker Frankie Whyte, who is one of our favorite people. Fantastic songwriter, great guitarist, great entertainer, really great communicator, and that's really what songwriting is all about. It's about communication. So, Frankie, what I'm wondering is about Allister and I've both talked about conscious songwriting versus unconscious songwriting and the sort of the continuum between the two. How much of your songwriting is unconscious or intuitive versus conscious, and do they cross over?
That's a super interesting question. I actually love that question. Man, it's hard to separate the unconscious from the songwriting process, right? I'm sure there's all kinds of things at work. Like even if you pick a topic consciously, I'm sure there's all kinds of things at work within us as songwriters from an unconscious level. So I think it's hard to really separate the two. I would say it's almost hard to remark like how much of it is unconscious, because it's if unconscious, then I don't.
You don't even know.
Like by definition, it's like outside of my awareness.
Right.
But what I can, I guess, remark on is like looking at songs after the fact. Like at the end, say you finished not product, but project, or say you finished a batch of songs or even a song, and you listen back to it, and maybe some kind of insight comes to mind where you're like, I didn't realize I was writing about that, or I didn't realize that whatever it was that was happening in my life somehow made it into that song. Maybe something that you're working through made it into that song. I find that definitely part of the process. I find it more, though, I try not to overthink it while I'm in it. It's more a product of me listening to like a finished song and hearing something after the fact that I didn't realize was going on within me at the time.
Yeah. I know this about myself, that the more conscious I am about it, the more sort of that I'm using my brain as opposed to my gut, the less I like the song after.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, for me that it's been a constant struggle of trying to separate my head from my heart, so to speak. Allister, do you share that? Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and my mind kind of goes somewhere related to this. I guess it's the concept of flow, being in that flow state. I think when I would say, oh yeah, that day I was really flowing, nothing else was going on. I was just in the flow. I was in the process. Then everything seems to come more intuitively. So maybe a good follow-up to this question is, do you have any tricks that you might employ for those moments when you can't get into flow, or you get out of it and suddenly you're very conscious of I'm trying to write a song? Do you have any
That's so
any
interesting.
tricks?
That's so interesting, because actually I have two things kind of come to mind right now. Is that when you brought up the unconscious conscious dynamic in songwriting, what I immediately interpreted that was I interpreted that as like there was some kind of like latent content going on within the material that you're writing. So latent being like unconscious, like unknown. I was applying it to like whether it's the narrative or the sound of the song or whatever. I wasn't so much thinking of it as like physical actions with the music, which is like flow, like getting into a kind of almost like mastered state where you're not like working so hard at the thing. It's just kind of you're just kind of like going with it. The stream is taking you. And Flea talks a lot about that. He basically, I've heard him say that like the best state of mind that you can be in when you're performing music anyway, this probably applies to writing music, is like when you have like the drool coming down the side of your face and you don't even know it, you know? So I think if we're talking about like the physical state of, is that what we're talking about? I mean, could you guys want to define conscious and unconscious for me?
Well, I guess it's that, I think we've probably all had those experiences where the song just kind of flows out of you, and it just keeps coming, and you're watching it. It's almost like you're, a near death experience. You're floating above your body, looking down, and like, wow, this is coming out of me. But you just, hopefully you keep going with it. And those are often, not always, but those are often my best songs. But it's a physical thing. I guess for me, you could also define it this way: art versus craft.
Yes.
You could craft the greatest song and make sure everything rhymes follows the right rhyme scheme, and everything scans exactly the way it's supposed to, quote unquote. And yet it might not move anybody, and that's a failure as a song. Really, you're supposed to move people. You're supposed to make them think. You're supposed to make them feel something. Want to dance or feel sexy or feel giddy or make them cry or whatever. So
it can be a cart before the horse kind of a scenario, isn't it? Where you're employing too much craft without actually having anything of substance to work on.
Totally.
You do a lot of co-writing, right, Frankie? You must have run into that occasionally, where you're writing with somebody who's a grizzled veteran, who's maybe is between inspiration, between visits from the muse, and you both sort of sit there looking at each other, and you're like, but then they can craft their way into writing something that at least makes both of you go, okay, well, that afternoon wasn't wasted or whatever. But really, it's not a song that either of you would ever do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually find with the veterans, the veterans are that I've worked with are masters at flow. And I find a focus on craft, I think comes from like it can often come from like a learner's perspective. Like I used to do that a lot when I was like starting out, like young songwriters who just are trying to get a handle on the structure or a handle on any number of things, melody. It's craft. Yeah. So I found it more in like younger songwriting sessions where people are preoccupied with craft. As far as like how to get into flow, it's hard to say definitively, right? Because it's like sometimes you can just find yourself in that state. I don't know if there's like a formula, and I can't think of a formula, like whether it's like witnessing someone else getting into it, like the veterans or myself. It's that weird thing where like I heard Bob Dylan, I'm sure you guys have seen this interview where someone was asking him how he writes songs, and he was like, I don't know. He literally said, I don't know. And Jim actually sent me that interview clip when I was like having my own anxiety over, we all have anxiety. It's like, because we all have anxiety about inspiration because it's such a fleeting thing. And yes, we have to get up every morning as songwriters and like work away and have a routine and do all that. And that's kind of where craft comes in, because you can get up every morning and sure write a song and you're working within the structure of craft, but it's like how to elicit art. I would just say for myself, just surround myself with things that elicit like the feeling that I'm trying to get at.
Right.
So I surround myself with like other pieces of art by other people, whether that's films, architecture, paintings, songs, books. I immerse myself into the feeling, and often those other inspirations like don't look anything like the thing I'm working on. It's just about feeling the feeling within myself.
Yeah.
So that's part of my kind of, it's like, I don't want to like walk around, carrying that feeling necessarily all the time. So it's like, I kind of like have a world where it's like, I can step into it and then step out of it. And that's kind of part of my process, I guess, when it comes to flow. I don't know if you guys have something similar.
I wish I did.
I know. I know. In my case, I'm like a squirrel sometimes. I mean, any little distraction takes me away
Me too.
So and I used to have, I don't know whether you call it FOMO or whatever, but I used to have all notifications turned on my phone, and now my phone makes very little noise. Having said that, it'll probably chirp now.
Allister, maybe this will help you really quick, because I know we don't have a lot of time, but maybe this will help you. David Lynch says that artists need 4 hours of uninterrupted time to get something done, from like the daydreaming side to like executing it.
Is that 4 hours continuously?
Yeah. He's like, people think I'm like not doing anything because they just see me sitting there. But he's like, that's like the most important time for artists, is to be able to just like sit, clear everything, and just like daydream and then execute.
See, I have trouble giving myself permission to do that, because, you know, I'm a dad and I'm a homeowner, and there's always, you know, snow to shovel or grass to cut or meals to make for my boy or laundry to do or whatever. And those sound like excuses, but it's permission. And the great thing that I'm going to take from this, I'm not kidding, is just the David Lynch reference you made, but also just talking about surrounding yourself with art and immersing yourself in that feeling. I'm actually going to take that as permission.
Cool.
I'm going to make a point of it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you so much. It's been inspiring in and of itself to talk about inspiration and conscious versus unconscious songwriting. Thank you, Frankie Whyte.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys.
Yeah. Okay, guys. See you next time on Hooks and Ladders.